Jon Kitna joins us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. Kit is a football lifer, played double-digit seasons in the National Football League. He had success at every single level of football, playing the quarterback position. And in typical Jon Kitna fashion, he's given back to the game, now coaching at the high school level. He was quarterback coach for the Dallas Cowboys for a while and could have coached in the National Football League for as long as he wanted to, but he wants to impact lives of young people. And to listen to him talk about that is very worthwhile. You're going to really enjoy it. You're in the trenches once again with Dave Lapham, and we're in our studios at First Star Logistics as always. And we have got a very special guest for you today. None other than Jon Kitna. Man, this guy, what a career. What a career. He's a football lifer. Played in the National Football League for double-digit seasons. The first time that I saw Jon Kitna play, I was doing radio, NFL Europe. The Barcelona Dragons won the World Bowl, and Jon Kitna was MVP of the World Bowl. That's the first time I saw it, and I'm like, Jon Kitna, look at this guy. Welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks for having me on, Lap.
I'll tell you, let's start with that because you come out of Central Washington and you set all kinds of records. You won an NAIA National Championship there. You're an NAIA All-American. Didn't get drafted. Go to Seattle Seahawks with as a college free agent, and they designate you to NFL Europe. What was that NFL Europe experience like for you, sir?
Yeah, Lap, I mean, first of all, I think the thing that's so important is just understanding how important coaches are to,
Yep.
Especially as when you're a younger player that maybe isn't as, developed or talented. When I went to Central Washington, my first 3 years, I had Greg Olson as my offensive coordinator. He's been coaching the NFL for the last 25 years. I mean,
Yeah.
The guy was amazing. He taught me everything. He taught me how to compete. And then he left after 3 years, and my next offensive coordinator was Bo Baldwin, who's now the offensive coordinator at Arizona State. And
Yeah.
He won a national championship at Eastern Washington at FCS level. And so, what a great opportunity I had with coaches like that. And then I go to, Dennis Erickson sees something that no one else saw when he was coaching with the Seahawks and gave me a chance to get my career going with Seattle. And then he sent me to the World League where I get to run into Jack Bicknell and Dick Curl. Jack was our head coach and Dick was the offensive coordinator. And man, they really simplified the game for me and let me go be who I was and compete. And I had great receivers and tight ends. I mean, I had 2 tight ends and 3 wide receivers that all caught 30 plus balls. I mean, we were loaded. Our offensive line was good. And so we had a lot of fun over there. It was a weird experience. You got to imagine back in 97 now, no internet wasn't even really up and running. And
Right.
You're taking those 14-hour flights to get overseas. You're not watching anything. You don't have music. We don't know where we're going. It's just a whole different deal. But we got to go to Sitges, Spain, which is a little resort town on the Mediterranean, and it was phenomenal. And Jack was the perfect head coach. He let you bring your wife over. So a lot of guys had their wives over there, and we had a great time. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, Jack Bicknell, who later Doug Flutie, Boston College fame. Man, he was a heck of a guy. Great coach. Tell me a little bit about the Dennis Erickson thing, because I think I read where he was trying out his nephew or something as a receiver, and you were throwing the football, and he's like, who the heck's this kid throwing the football? And Dennis Erickson's like, is that when he found you, Kit?
Yeah, so his nephew transferred from Fresno State. Dennis was the coach at Seahawks, and his nephew transferred to play his last year at Central Washington.
Okay.
And he was phenomenal. This guy's unbelievable. And he clearly didn't belong at Central Washington University. And he was a running back, and he was great. But Coach Erickson, he made it to a couple games, but I don't think that was the deal. He was just trying to do us a favor. And, you know, it was back in the day when, again, not a lot of information was out there on people. And so he called his nephew and said, "Hey, why don't you and John come over? It's the University of Washington senior testing day. All the scouts in the NFL will be in town. I let our scouts know that you guys are going to be on our property and they can come over and work you out." So he said, "You guys just go down, hang out. They'll probably be over here in a couple hours." And man, 3 hours went by and nobody showed up. And I think he felt bad. And because we had driven like 3 hours to get there.
Right.
And we've been hanging out for 3 hours. So he came and just he had us run a 40 and then he's like, "Okay, that's enough. Let's throw." And we didn't no receivers. His 13-year-old son was standing in spots. And he said, "All right, move over there. All right, move over there. All right, go to 17 yards." And I say to this day, it was the best day I ever had throwing. And
Really?
you know, and then Jacksonville did end up showing up at the end of the workout, but they said, "Hey, it was Dennis Erickson and Randy Mueller," and they said, "You're not working out for them." And so they brought me back a couple weeks later, and I worked out again. Now I have receivers, guys that were in the workout program, and it went okay that day. It wasn't as good as the first day, and then they signed me as a free agent.
That's unbelievable, man. Your career highlights. I mean, you were all league 3 times in your high school playing career. NAIA All-American, NAIA National Champion, like we talked about, World Bowl champion, World Bowl MVP of that championship game. You were comeback player of the year in the National Football League. Of all the accolades, all the awards, which one's the most meaningful to you, if any?
Of all of them, to be honest with you, Lap, of everything that you said, it's not one that you said. It would be being Carson Palmer's backup.
Really? Wow.
I mean, it's when I realized I really was called to coach, because watching him succeed and watching him develop was more fulfilling than anything I went through myself. And I remember when we beat Baltimore, I believe it was 2004, his first year starting. And when we beat Baltimore, I think in Baltimore, and just the feeling of gratification I had of watching that guy and seeing him grow, that was everything to me. And then I would say from there, it's probably being at Lincoln High School coaching in 2014, and our team went to the playoffs. And this is a group of kids that Title I school, 83% of them are below the poverty line. 86% don't have a dad at home. Wow. And there was a 3-year culmination where we went to the playoffs and we went 3 rounds deep, and they beat some perennial, contenders for the state championship, one being O'Day High School, who had Miles Gaskin as their running back.
Yeah.
And seeing the pride in our community, that was a pretty big deal.
I mean, it's incredible. You play in the National Football League for the length of time you did. You coached with the Dallas Cowboys as a quarterback coach. A lot of people would be like, "Man, why don't you coach in the National Football League?" But your love obviously was at the high school level. You've been a head coach at, a couple of different places, been successful. I mean, you've won a hell of a lot more games than you haven't. There's no doubt about that. I know you're a man of faith and just one of the greatest guys I've ever known. Impacting young people, is that the biggest objective in your mind?
Yeah, it's because of guys like John McCrossin, my high school basketball coach, and Cookie Kidsman, my high school math teacher, who impacted my life in such ways that, I just realized that's where I get my most fulfillment. And my wife is an educator and a teacher herself. She coached the high school level before we had kids, and it's just, I don't know. I just think of the impact you can have at that high school level is so immense when you're really trying to, I call it partnering with parents in the endeavor of helping these young men navigate the crazy waters that they walk through and or swim through, I guess. And so, I've had those opportunities, plenty of opportunities to stay in the NFL, coach in the NFL, college. Heck, had an opportunity to jump back in with the XFL when they rebooted this spring, and actually be a head coach in that league. And but I just feel like God has put this calling on our lives, my wife and I, and really my family, and we enjoy it. We enjoy, building programs and watching young men become real men, and so it's really a calling that God's put on our life. And I don't know how long it's going to be. I just know that it's what really has driven us as a family for the last 13 or 11 years, I guess.
I'll tell you, I admire you, and I admire what you're doing, because I can remember every single coach that I had in high school. Whip Halleck, Jerry Callaghy, Lou D'Alessandro, Dan Blanchard. I mean, the list goes on and on. Every one of those guys, and like you played football, basketball, baseball, all these different sports, these coaches, and like you were talking about, when you have really quality coaches, instead of a guy that, is going to tear you apart and tear you down, or guys that are building you up and helping you grow, man, those guys stay with you for the rest of your life. I remember things that they said and lessons they taught to this very day.
Yeah.
And, I admire you. It's amazing. You are influencing and impacting young adults at the most critical time of their lives, man.
Yeah. And again, it's a huge blessing. It's a huge responsibility, as you said. I don't know that, I'm not going to comment on other coaches. I just know that there's a guy out there named Joe Ehrman. You might remember that name.
I played with him at Syracuse. We were teammates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, he
played with the Colts. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they did John Garrett, actually, in 2002, when I was with the Bengals. He was coaching tight ends. He gave me a book at the last day of the season. We were cleaning out our lockers, and it was called Season of Life.
Yeah.
And it was a book, and it found Joe Ehrman in there. And then he kind of founded this idea of transformational coaching, coaching young men from the inside out, and really paying attention to their character, and really trying to invest in that. And that's really what I've been trying to do. And Joe is kind of the pioneer of it, and that's the philosophy that we've tried to adopt.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, Joe, we called him Rookie, and he was he was a heck of a player. First round draft pick by the Indianapolis Colts. At that time, Baltimore. He played when they were in Baltimore, but he was just a great player. Well, speaking of, you're at Lakota East. You're in the weight room at Lakota East as we speak, right? Where the young men, the young boys grow into men as well physically.
Right.
Your son Jameson is a heck of a prospect for you at the quarterback position at Lakota East. Talk a little bit about your son.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I when I started coaching high school ball, he was in second grade.
Wow.
And he was, we weren't trying to let him play tackle football at that age or anything like that. Well, he would go to my other son's practice, who was in fifth grade. And, I'm already at my own practice. My wife is taking him. After a couple of days, my wife's like, I lost Jameson. And next thing I know, I'm looking for him, and he's out there in the drills. And so and this is him now. I think he has a future as a lawyer or an agent or something, because he loves to persuade people. And he talked my wife and I into letting him play football. They didn't have a second grade team, so he played for the fourth grade team. And we specifically told the coaches, we said, listen, we're going to let him play. You put him out a receiver. Don't ever throw him the ball. Just keep him away from everything. And that didn't last very long. He's been running our system since second grade. He loves it. He loves the process of quarterback. He's all about his teammates. He's a true dual threat. He could run it, but he prefers to throw it. He prefers to get the ball to his teammates. And so, he's got a big arm. He'll uncork it, 60, 65 yards isn't a deal for him. He matured earlier than my other boys, earlier than I did. He's a little over 6'2", 215 pounds, chooses to run the 400 in track.
Wow.
So I don't know. He's different mentally. And so it's a fun deal to coach him. and he's my last one. I've got to coach all my boys, and it's been awesome.
Man, he chose to run the 400. That's a dog gut race right there, man. That is a brutal race. So, all your experiences, and you were a consummate leader. What's your definition of a leader?
Yeah, servant leadership. It's Carson Palmer. It's Carson Palmer. He wanted no credit. He'd take all the blame. He worked harder than anybody in the room, but he didn't want anybody to know. He didn't do it for show. He was always aware of every person in the locker room. And so that servant leadership idea, being humble, yet having a strong presence, right? Like, you can't be so humble that nobody will follow you. You got to have a presence. You got to have and I got a chance to coach Dak Prescott for a year. I mean, he's as good as they come. You got to lead in everything. And I think some people try to lead in what they want to lead in. They try to pick and choose where they want to lead. No, you have to lead in everything. That's part of the deal. And so true definition, I think, is servant leadership, putting others before yourself, and being willing to sacrifice for the betterment of everybody.
Boy, you're talking about another guy that wears number 9, Joe Burrow.
Yep.
Man, what's your opinion of Joe Burrow now that you've seen him play some, and what do you think about him as a quarterback?
It's hard to have an opinion because I haven't been around him. However, watching him enough, he seems to be one of the smartest individuals I've ever seen play the game. And, and then again, that same thing, like, he lived in this world where, for the first 2 years, people kept wanting to blame everybody around him for anything. And he never joined that narrative. He just always kept working, kept his head down. And there's ways that you can kind of blame others without directly blaming them. He never took that road. He just always was focused on himself, how he could get better. And I think it's phenomenal. And that's why I think people follow him. His teammates, it's unquestioned that he's the leader.
Right.
And that's pretty special. And then when you have that, it seems like he and his head coach and the management there just have, it seems like they're all on one accord. So it's a perfect deal for him, it seems to me.
As a Bengal alum, having played here the 5 seasons that you did, and having some great moments with the Cincinnati Bengals, what do you enjoy watching them go out and perform? Last couple of years been a pretty good thing.
Yeah, well, one thing I'll tell you is my daughter, all my kids have chosen, teams that they like, and
Right.
My daughter said I'm gonna be she's diehard Bengals, diehard
Really?
now.
Really?
And so, her and I would watch, and then matter of fact, when they ended up in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, we sent her and my son Jameson out to the Super Bowl for a gift, and so they loved it. But yeah, we watched as much Bengal games as we could when we were in Dallas, but obviously now being here, but they're just a fun brand of football. They play great defense. They spread the ball around. They have superstars that aren't divas, so, and then their head coach, man, I mean, Ali, if you don't like that guy, something's wrong with you. He's just competitive as they come, which, people want to follow that.
No doubt. So a former teammate, Willie Anderson, he's going to be up at Lakota East, the end of the month, next week, doing his offensive line academy camp. And Willie, I remember Willie, talk about loving a teammate. Willie Anderson never say enough good things about Jon Kitna. And he goes, Lap, I'm telling you, man, I don't care. You go to anybody in this locker room, they're all going to say, Kit's right at the top of my favorite teammate list, man. Everybody loved Kit. So you guys are going to be working together a little bit at Willie's camp. What's happening there?
Yeah, he's one of the best O-line trainers in the country. And, obviously went through some health stuff that was pretty dire for a while. But I saw him a couple weeks ago. He looked strong. And so, we got the opportunity here at Lakota East for him to come and bring his big man stuff here for a couple of days on the 30th and 31st. And he came to me, didn't have to convince me or anything. Number one, because how much I love Willie, but number two, when we build our programs, when we build our high school programs, we invest heavily in our offensive line and defensive line. We know that the game doesn't really matter. It's the title of your show, In the Trenches, right? Like, it doesn't matter what level you're at. You better be good in the trenches, or else you're just a house of cards. And so, with him coming here, the opportunity to get as many of these high schools involved and these high school big men in the area involved, we hope that everybody comes out for that, because the teaching isn't going to get any better than Willie Anderson and the crew that he's bringing with him.
No question about it. I mean, Big Willie, man, not only physically gifted, but I mean, as good a technician and understanding, the game of football up front, everything that there is to know, every little detail, every little nuance. Willie's on top of it, man, big time.
Yeah, no doubt.
So what kind of offense, defense can fans expect out of Lakota East when you guys tee it up this fall?
Yeah, well, first of all, fortunately on my defensive side, I'm just incredibly blessed to get Rodney Heath, who I played with for 4 years with the Bengals, and Darren Chenault, guys who have been in this area and coached high school football for a long time at a really high level. So they're running our defense, and the one thing I'll say about that is it's going to be an attacking style of defense where you're gonna have 11 hats showing up at the football on every play, and so that makes it fun. Offensively, I tell our kids all the time, watch games on Sunday, because you're going to see our offense, and inevitably that's what they'll do. They'll be in a group chat and they're like, they just ran Cyclone, or they just ran Bullets, they just ran Jailbreak for a touchdown, and so that's really we take the pro level and then kind of dumb it down a little bit and make it as simple as possible for the high school level, but that's really what it is. And we'll use 2 tight ends. We'll use 3 tight ends if we have them. We'll use 5 wide receivers. We'll use a fullback. We'll use 2 running backs. We'll use some quarterback run stuff. We'll throw the ball down the field. We'll use a screen game. So we really try to think that, what are we on offense is we're whatever we have to be. Whatever, the kids who walk through that door kind of dictate what we're going to be. Yeah,
I love it. Love everything about it. And there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to have a very, very long and prosperous run up there at Lakota East. And I'll tell you, all the kids that are playing for you, Jon Kitna, are lucky and very, very fortunate. And boy, it's nothing better for a parent than to know that their kids are in the hands of a guy like Jon Kitna. Congratulations to you, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. And, again, I never thought I'd be coaching high school football in Ohio. I'm super excited about it. I got a great principal and a great athletic director, Jill Myring, and her assistant, John Mason. And as you know, Lakota is one of the finest school districts, not just in Ohio, but in the country. So we're fortunate. We're fortunate to be here and look forward to building something that's going to be sustainably great over time.
Well, I'll tell you, the area is fortunate to have you and your family here as well. So can't thank you enough. Appreciate your time. Thanks for carving time for us. It was a blast, man. It was well spent time. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on, Lap. I appreciate you.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Hey there, everybody. I'm Dave Lapham, and we do a podcast called In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And if you want to hit the like button on when you're reserving any video, that'd be a good thing to do. And if you want to subscribe and not miss any videos, make sure you do that, because we are going to try to cover the Cincinnati Bengals every way that they can be covered.